where faith, inspiration, and storytelling come together to bring the Bible to life like never before. Our mission is to take you on a spiritual journey through the Bible's stories, from the creation in Genesis to the revelations of the end times. Welcome to Timeless Bible Journeys.
Welcome, friends, to Timeless Bible Journeys, the channel where ancient stories are brought to life with fresh insights and meaningful lessons for today. We're so glad you're here to join us as we explore one of the most iconic, breathtaking, and transformative events in human history, the parting of the Red Sea, led by the prophet Moses. Imagine standing at the edge of an endless sea, its waves crashing against the shore, stretching beyond the horizon. Behind you, the ground shakes with the thunder of horses and chariots, a powerful army closing in, ready to destroy you and your people. Before you is an impassable barrier of water. Behind you is certain death. What do you do? This is the scene faced by the Israelites in one of the most dramatic stories ever told. It's a moment of ultimate crisis, where fear, faith, and destiny collide. And it's a moment that holds lessons for all of us, even thousands of years later. Why does this story matter so much, even today? The parting of the Red Sea is more than a tale of survival or a miraculous escape. It's a profound symbol of liberation, resilience, and divine intervention. It's a story about overcoming impossible odds, about the power of faith to open pathways where none seem to exist, and about finding hope in the darkest of times. And most importantly, it's a story that asks us to confront the Red Seas in our own lives. But beyond its symbolism, this narrative also sparks deep curiosity. Could such an event really have happened? Is it purely a spiritual allegory, or is there a historical and scientific basis for it? Over centuries, scholars, scientists, and theologians have debated and studied this question, offering theories and insights that continue to fascinate and inspire. Today, we'll dive into those perspectives and explore how this timeless story bridges the gap between the spiritual and the natural, the mythical and the historical. As we journey together through this story, we'll uncover its many layers. The dramatic escape from Egyptian bondage, the miraculous crossing of the sea, the debates about its historical and geographical reality, and its enduring cultural and spiritual significance. Whether you're a person of faith, a seeker of truth, or simply someone who loves a good story, there's something here for everyone. At Timeless Bible Journeys, we believe in the power of storytelling to inspire, educate, and connect us to something greater. That's why we're excited to share this extraordinary tale with you today. Along the way, we'll not only recount the narrative, but also reflect on the deeper lessons it offers. Lessons about courage, perseverance, and the unshakable belief that even in the face of the impossible, there's always a way forward. So, grab a comfortable seat, settle in, and prepare to be transported to the ancient world of Exodus. Together, we'll relive the unforgettable journey of Moses and the Israelites as they confront their fears, embrace their faith, and witness the power of the divine in action. Before we begin, don't forget to show your support by liking this video, sharing it with friends, and subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so be sure to comment below. What does the story of Moses and the Red Sea mean to you? What insights or questions does it bring to mind? Let's keep the conversation alive. Now, let's set sail on this timeless journey and discover the wonders waiting to unfold. Bondage and Freedom. To truly understand the magnitude of the Red Sea crossing, we must first journey back in time to the land of ancient Egypt, a land of grandeur and glory, but also one of oppression and despair. For over 4 centuries, the Israelites lived in this land, not as free people, but as slaves. Their days were filled with relentless labor, building the mighty cities and monuments of the pharaohs, enduring backbreaking tasks under the scorching Egyptian sun. Generation after generation, they toiled in bondage, their identity as a free nation slowly eroding under the weight of oppression. Yet, amidst the despair, there was a glimmer of hope. The Israelites clung to the promises passed down from their ancestors, promises of a covenant with God, a divine assurance that one day they would be free. These promises gave them strength, even as Pharaoh tightened his grip, subjecting them to even harsher conditions in his quest to suppress any hint of rebellion. By the time Moses entered the story, the Israelites were crying out for deliverance, desperate for a savior. Now, Moses wasn't an obvious choice for this role. Born into a time when Pharaoh had decreed that all Hebrew baby boys should be killed, Moses' very survival was a miracle. His mother, in an act of both love and desperation, placed him in a basket and set him adrift on the Nile. It was here that Pharaoh's own daughter discovered him and, against all odds, raised him as her own. Moses grew up with the privileges of Egyptian royalty, yet he never forgot his Hebrew roots. As a young man, he witnessed the brutal treatment of his people, and his anger boiled over when he saw an Egyptian taskmaster beating a Hebrew slave. In a moment of rage, Moses killed the taskmaster and fled into exile, spending years as a shepherd in the wilderness. It was in this wilderness, amidst the quiet of the desert, that Moses encountered God in the form of a burning bush. Imagine his shock, his awe, as the voice of the Almighty called out to him, commissioning him to return to Egypt and demand the release of the Israelites. Moses, hesitant and uncertain, questioned his ability to take on such a monumental task, but God reassured him, "I will be with you." And so, reluctantly, Moses returned to the land of his birth to confront Pharaoh. What followed was a dramatic showdown of wills, as Moses, armed only with his faith and the backing of God, demanded that Pharaoh let the Israelites go. Pharaoh, hardened and prideful, refused, even as Egypt was struck by a series of devastating plagues. From rivers turning to blood, to swarms of locusts, to darkness that covered the land, the plagues were a stark demonstration of divine power. Yet Pharaoh's heart remained unyielding. It wasn't until the final, most devastating plague, the death of the firstborn, that Pharaoh finally relented. The Israelites, instructed to mark their doors with the blood of a lamb, were spared, and this event, known as Passover, became a cornerstone of their faith. At last, Pharaoh ordered the Israelites to leave. Imagine the scene: an entire nation, millions strong, hastily packing their belongings and setting out into the unknown. They carried with them their hopes, their fears, and the weight of centuries of suffering. Freedom was finally within their grasp, but their journey had only just begun. Little did they know, their greatest challenge lay ahead, a challenge that would test their faith, their resilience, and their trust in the God who had brought them this far. Trapped at the Red Sea, the Israelites had finally escaped Egypt. For the first time in generations, they tasted the sweetness of freedom, the promise of a new life ahead of them. But as they marched into the wilderness, hope soon gave way to uncertainty. Imagine traveling with families, young children, and the elderly through a vast and unfamiliar desert. Supplies were limited, the terrain was harsh, and the questions lingered in everyone's minds. Where were they going? Would this freedom last? Their journey led them to the shores of the Red Sea, a vast body of water stretching as far as the eye could see. But instead of relief, this moment became one of terror. Behind them, the ground began to tremble, not with the steps of their people, but with the thundering hooves of Pharaoh's chariots. Pharaoh, consumed by anger and regret, had changed his mind. He could not bear the thought of losing his labor force or letting Moses' God have the final word. He assembled his finest army and gave chase, determined to capture or destroy the Israelites. Imagine the scene: the Israelites, exhausted and vulnerable, standing on the edge of the sea. Before them, the waters loomed, a natural barrier that seemed impossible to cross. Behind them, Pharaoh's forces surged closer, the glint of weapons catching the sun, the war cries of soldiers echoing through the air. Fear swept through the camp like wildfire. Voices rose in panic as they turned to Moses, questioning his leadership. "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die?" they cried. "It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die here." It was a moment of utter crisis, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The Israelites were caught between two impossible choices: drown in the sea ahead or fall to Pharaoh's army behind. The promises of freedom seemed distant, and the faith that had sustained them wavered in the face of this immediate threat. But Moses stood firm. He didn't lash out at their doubts or give in to despair. Instead, he spoke words that would resonate across time. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still." Then came the divine command: "Raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea to divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground." In obedience, Moses raised his staff, and something extraordinary began to happen. A mighty wind swept across the waters, growing stronger with each passing moment. The sea, once a vast and impassable obstacle, began to part. Towering walls of water rose on either side, creating a pathway of dry ground through the heart of the sea. Imagine the awe and disbelief of the Israelites as they took their first hesitant steps onto the seabed. The once roaring waves stood still, held back by an unseen force. Mothers clutched their children tightly, elders leaned on their staffs, and families hurried forward together, crossing through what had once seemed an impossible barrier. But Pharaoh's army was relentless. As the Israelites neared the far shore, Pharaoh's chariots plunged into the parted waters, determined to recapture their prey. Yet the sea, held back by divine power, was not theirs to conquer. Once the last Israelite had safely crossed, Moses stretched out his hand again. The waters roared back into place, crashing down upon the pursuing army. Pharaoh's chariots were swallowed by the sea, and the once mighty forces of Egypt were no more. In an instant, the Israelites were free, not just from Pharaoh's physical grip, but from the lingering shadow of slavery and oppression. Their terror turned to triumph as they stood on the far shore, witnessing the undeniable power of the God who had delivered them. The impossible had been made possible, and their journey toward the promised land could now truly begin. The miracle, the sea parts. The moment had arrived. The Israelites stood at the brink of an impossible situation, trapped between the Red Sea and the advancing Egyptian army. Panic and despair filled the air, but in the midst of the chaos, Moses remained resolute, trusting in the promise of God's deliverance. With calm authority, Moses lifted his staff and stretched out his hand over the waters, just as God had commanded. And then the miraculous happened. A fierce wind began to blow, strong and unrelenting, sweeping across the waters of the Red Sea. It wasn't the kind of wind that merely rustles leaves or sways trees. This was a wind with purpose, an unstoppable force of nature that seemed to respond to the divine command. Slowly but surely, the waters began to shift. Waves that had once crashed against the shore now divided, parting to reveal an extraordinary sight. Towering walls of water rose up on either side, leaving a dry pathway in between. Imagine the sheer magnitude of this moment. A sea that moments before seemed to promise only death now stood as a corridor of life and hope. The seabed, once submerged beneath a vast expanse of water, lay exposed, dry and firm, ready for the Israelites to cross. The people hesitated at first, understandably awestruck. This wasn't just a natural phenomenon, this was a miracle. a direct intervention of the divine in their time of need. Mothers clutched their children, elders looked to the heavens in disbelief, and young men and women stared at the path ahead with a mixture of fear and wonder. But Moses' voice urged them forward. "Go, the Lord is making a way for you." One by one, then in groups, the Israelites began their journey through the heart of the sea. Imagine the sights and sounds of that moment, the murmur of thousands of voices moving as one, the whispers of awe at the walls of water standing firm, and the quiet determination of people placing one foot in front of the other on dry ground that moments ago had been the ocean floor. Families held hands as they hurried forward, their sandals kicking up dust on land that had been hidden beneath the sea for ages. Behind them, Pharaoh's army continued its relentless pursuit. The clamor of chariots, the shouts of soldiers, and the thunder of hooves echoed through the corridor. But the Israelites pressed on, driven by faith and hope, knowing that this was their chance, perhaps their only chance, to escape the grip of slavery forever. As the last Israelite stepped onto the far shore, Moses turned to see Pharaoh's forces racing into the pathway, their chariots speeding across the dry seabed. But the miracle wasn't over yet. With divine timing, God instructed Moses once more, "Stretch out your hand over the sea." Moses obeyed. As his staff was raised, the walls of water began to collapse. The wind ceased, and the sea returned to its natural state with a deafening roar. The towering walls of water surged back into place, crashing down upon Pharaoh's chariots, horses, and soldiers. In moments, the mighty Egyptian army was no more. The same waters that had provided salvation for the Israelites now became the instrument of judgment for their oppressors. The Israelites, now safely on the far side of the sea, watched in silence as the realization dawned on them. They were free, not just free from Pharaoh's pursuit, but free from the chains of slavery that had bound their people for generations. Their deliverance was complete, and it was undeniably the work of the divine. The reaction was immediate. The people erupted into song, led by Moses and his sister Miriam. The song of the sea became their anthem of praise, a celebration of God's power and faithfulness. They sang of the mighty hand that parted the waters, the deliverance from their enemies, and the freedom that now lay before them. It was a moment of pure, unrestrained joy, a moment that would be remembered and retold for generations to come. The parting of the Red Sea wasn't just an escape, it was a transformation. It marked the beginning of a new chapter for the Israelites, one where they could finally live as a free people, guided by faith and the promises of their God. And for us today, it stands as a timeless reminder that even in the face of the impossible, there is always a way forward when faith leads the way. The debate, myth, history, or both. The parting of the Red Sea stands as one of the most astonishing moments in the Bible, a story of divine intervention that defies the limits of human understanding. But how much of it is historical fact? How much is myth or metaphor? This question has intrigued theologians, historians, archaeologists, and scientists for centuries. Today we'll explore the possibilities, examining the evidence, theories, and perspectives surrounding this remarkable event. Let's begin with the biblical account. According to Exodus, Moses, guided by God, stretched out his hand and the Red Sea parted, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry land. For believers, this is a clear demonstration of God's power to save his people. The details: walls of water standing on either side, Pharaoh's army drowned as the sea collapsed, paint a vivid picture of divine deliverance. But what do history and science say about this miraculous event? The first area of debate lies in the translation of the term Red Sea. The original Hebrew text uses the phrase Yam Suf, which many have interpreted as the Red Sea we know today. However, some scholars suggest that it may mean Sea of Reeds, pointing to a different, more shallow body of water. This distinction has led to competing theories about the exact location of the crossing. Some propose the Gulf of Suez, a northern arm of the Red Sea, as the site of the event. This theory aligns with the traditional view of a large-scale miracle, where massive walls of water would create a dramatic and awe-inspiring passage. Others argue for the Gulf of Aqaba, supported by certain biblical references and claims of potential underwater discoveries, such as chariot wheels. On the other hand, those who favor the Sea of Reeds interpretation suggest a marshy area in the Nile Delta, where wind or other natural phenomena might have temporarily exposed dry ground. What about archaeological evidence? To date, no definitive artifacts or structures have been found to confirm the Exodus or the Red Sea crossing. Despite claims of underwater findings such as chariot wheels or human remains, these discoveries lack verification and are often dismissed by mainstream scholars. Prominent archaeologists like Zahi Hawass have openly stated that there is no historical evidence for the Exodus as described in the Bible. Yet, absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence. The Bible describes a nomadic people fleeing their oppressors, an event that may not have left behind significant physical traces. It's also worth noting that ancient records from Egypt would be unlikely to document such an embarrassing defeat, further complicating the search for corroborative evidence. Turning to science, some researchers have proposed natural explanations for the parting of the waters. One theory involves the wind set-down effect, where sustained, powerful winds can push water aside, exposing dry land. This phenomenon has been observed in modern contexts, such as in lakes or shallow seas. Another hypothesis links the event to seismic activity, suggesting that an earthquake or volcanic eruption, such as the eruption of Santorini, could have caused temporary changes in sea levels. While these theories provide plausible scenarios, they fall short of fully capturing the scale and timing described in the biblical account. So, was the parting of the Red Sea a historical event, a mythic allegory, or something in between? The answer may depend on one's perspective. For people of faith, the story's spiritual truth transcends historical or scientific scrutiny. It symbolizes liberation, divine power, and the triumph of faith over fear. For historians and scientists, it remains an intriguing mystery, an ancient narrative that defies easy explanation. Ultimately, the debate over the Red Sea crossing is not just about uncovering facts, but about understanding the deeper meaning behind the story. Whether you view it as a literal miracle, a natural phenomenon, or a metaphorical tale, its enduring power lies in its ability to inspire hope, courage, and a sense of the extraordinary. The symbolism, faith, salvation, and deliverance. The parting of the Red Sea is more than just an extraordinary event in biblical history. It is a powerful symbol, rich with layers of meaning that resonate across time. Beyond the drama of Moses raising his staff and the sea splitting in two, this story speaks deeply to the universal themes of faith, salvation, and deliverance. It challenges us to reflect not only on the Israelites' journey, but on our own struggles and triumphs. At its heart, the crossing of the Red Sea represents the power of faith in the face of fear. Imagine the Israelites standing on the shore, the crashing waves before them, and Pharaoh's army thundering behind. Many were gripped by terror, doubting whether they could survive. Yet Moses' words cut through their despair. "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." These words remind us that faith is not the absence of fear, but the courage to move forward despite it. In this way, the Red Sea serves as a metaphor for the obstacles we all face in life. How often do we encounter our own Red Seas moments, when the path ahead seems impossible and the pressures of the past threaten to overtake us? Whether it's a personal challenge, a relationship struggle, or an overwhelming life transition, This story encourages us to trust in something greater than ourselves. It shows us that even when the way forward seems blocked, faith can part the waters and create a path where none existed before. The theme of salvation is equally central to the narrative. For the Israelites, the Red Sea was not just a physical barrier, it was the final hurdle separating them from freedom. Slavery in Egypt had been their reality for generations, shaping their identity and limiting their future. Crossing the Red Sea was a transformative moment, one where they left behind the chains of their past and stepped into the promise of a new beginning. In many ways, this is a story of rebirth. The waters of the Red Sea symbolize a kind of spiritual cleansing, a passage from death to life. When the Israelites emerged on the other side, they were no longer slaves. They were a free people, bound not by Pharaoh, but by their covenant with God. For believers, this moment foreshadows the ultimate salvation offered in faith, the idea that through divine intervention, we can be freed from the forces that oppress and limit us. The story also reminds us of the importance of leadership and trust. Moses, though reluctant at first, became the vessel through which God's power was revealed. His unwavering trust in God's plan allowed him to guide his people through their darkest hour. In our own lives, we may find ourselves called to lead or support others through challenges, even when the way forward is unclear. The Red Sea narrative teaches us that true leadership comes from a place of faith, humility, and service to a higher purpose. Finally, the parting of the Red Sea speaks to the idea of deliverance, not just for the Israelites, but for humanity as a whole. It is a testament to the belief that no obstacle is too great for divine intervention. The story assures us that in the face of insurmountable odds, there is hope. It reminds us that deliverance is not just about physical freedom, but about liberation from fear, despair, and doubt. The enduring power of this story lies in its ability to speak to both the collective and the personal. As a people, the Israelites were delivered from oppression, setting a foundation for their identity and faith. As individuals, we are reminded that we too can find freedom. Freedom to trust, to hope, and to overcome. Ultimately, the Red Sea crossing is not just a story of ancient times, but a timeless narrative that continues to inspire. It invites us to reflect on the moments in our own lives when faith carried us through the impossible, and encourages us to trust that, even when we face our deepest fears, deliverance is always within reach. Lessons for modern life. The story of Moses and the parting of the Red Sea may be thousands of years old, but its lessons are as relevant today as they were in the ancient world. At its core, this story is about resilience, faith, and overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles. These timeless themes resonate deeply in our modern lives, reminding us that the challenges we face are not so different from those of the Israelites. One of the most powerful lessons from the Red Sea crossing is the importance of faith in times of uncertainty. How often do we find ourselves standing at the edge of our own metaphorical Red Seas? It might be a financial crisis, a failing relationship, or a daunting career decision. Like the Israelites, we may feel trapped, paralyzed by fear, and unable to see a way forward. Yet this story reminds us that faith is about stepping forward, even when the path is unclear. It's about trusting that solutions will emerge and that obstacles can be overcome, even when they seem insurmountable. This leads us to the next lesson, the power of perseverance. The Israelites didn't escape Egypt and cross the Red Sea in one simple, smooth journey. They faced hardships, doubts, and moments of despair. In the same way, our paths in life are rarely straightforward. Success, growth, and freedom often come through perseverance, through the willingness to take one step at a time, even when the destination feels far away. The story also teaches us the importance of leadership and courage. Moses was not a perfect leader. He doubted himself, questioned his abilities, and resisted the call at first. Yet, when the moment came, he stepped up, trusting in his purpose and the guidance he received. In our modern lives, we are often called to lead, whether in our families, communities, or workplaces. True leadership doesn't require perfection. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to act in service of others, even when the road ahead is uncertain. Another key lesson lies in the value of community. The Israelites crossed the Red Sea as a collective, supporting one another in their journey. This speaks to the power of shared struggles and shared triumphs. In our individualistic world, it's easy to feel isolated in our challenges. Yet the Red Sea story reminds us that we are stronger when we lean on one another, share our burdens, and celebrate our victories together. The story also invites us to reflect on the concept of deliverance. For the Israelites, deliverance was freedom from slavery, a physical and spiritual liberation. In our lives, deliverance might look different. It could mean breaking free from unhealthy habits, toxic relationships, or limiting beliefs. It's a reminder that we are not defined by our past and that transformation is always possible, no matter how stuck we might feel. Finally, the parting of the Red Sea reminds us of the profound connection between fear and growth. Fear is a natural response to the unknown, but it's often a signal that we're on the brink of transformation. Just as the Israelites had to face their fears to cross the sea, we too must confront our own fears to reach new heights. The story challenges us to ask, what is holding us back? What are the Red Seas in our lives that we need to cross? As we navigate the complexities of modern life, this ancient story offers a timeless source of inspiration. It encourages us to trust in the process, to embrace our struggles as opportunities for growth, and to believe that even in the darkest moments, a path forward exists. Whether you view this story as history, allegory, or a blend of both, its message is clear. We all have the power to overcome, to grow, and to find freedom, if we're willing to take that first step into the unknown. So, as you reflect on your own journey, ask yourself, what lesson from the Red Sea story can guide me today? The answers might just surprise you, and they might lead you to your own miracle. A timeless journey. The story of Moses and the parting of the Red Sea is more than a historical narrative or a religious account. It is a timeless journey that transcends its ancient origins to speak to the core of our shared human experience. It is a story of faith triumphing over fear, of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds, and of the unyielding belief that deliverance is always possible, no matter how dire the circumstances. At its heart, this story reminds us of the enduring power of hope. Imagine the Israelites standing at the shores of the Red Sea, terrified and trapped. Behind them, Pharaoh's army thundered closer, promising certain destruction. Before them stretched an impassable body of water, a symbol of their helplessness. In that moment of despair, they witnessed a miracle, an act of divine intervention that transformed an impossible obstacle into a pathway to freedom. This transformation is a powerful metaphor for our own lives. How often do we find ourselves facing situations that seem insurmountable? Whether it's personal struggles, professional challenges, or global crises, we all encounter our own Red Seas moments, when fear, doubt, and uncertainty threaten to overwhelm us. The lesson of this story is clear. No matter how impossible the situation may seem, there is always a way forward when we have faith, courage, and the determination to take that first step. The parting of the Red Sea also invites us to consider the deeper significance of deliverance. For the Israelites, it was not just an escape from physical slavery, it was a moment of spiritual liberation, a step toward becoming a nation bound by faith and purpose. In our own lives, deliverance can take many forms. It may mean breaking free from limiting beliefs, overcoming fear, or finding the strength to pursue our dreams. It is a reminder that true freedom is not just about escaping hardship, but about embracing the possibilities that lie on the other side. This story also speaks to the importance of community and collective action. The Israelites did not cross the sea alone. They did so together, as a people united by a common goal. In our modern, often individualistic world, this serves as a powerful reminder of the strength we find in supporting and uplifting one another. Whether we are facing personal challenges or larger societal issues, our journeys are often made easier and more meaningful when we walk alongside others. And finally, the story of the Red Sea teaches us to trust in the process, even when the path ahead is unclear. Moses did not part the sea through his own power. He was guided by a force greater than himself. This is a profound lesson for us today. Sometimes, we need to let go of our need for control and trust that the path will unfold as it should. It is a call to surrender to faith, to the unknown, and to the possibility that miracles can happen when we least expect them. As we bring this journey to a close, let's take a moment to reflect. What are the Red Seas in your life? What obstacles are you facing that feel insurmountable? And what steps can you take, however small, to move forward in faith? Remember, the story of the Red Sea is not just about ancient history. It's about you, me, and the power of the human spirit to overcome. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of the most iconic stories ever told. If this tale has inspired you, please take a moment to like this video, share it with others, and subscribe to Timeless Bible Journeys for more stories that uplift and inspire. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What lessons from the Red Sea story resonate most with you? Until next time, may your own journey be guided by hope, faith, and the courage to cross your Red Sea. Remember, even in the face of the impossible, miracles can and do happen.